November 14th, 1942, 23:58 hours. Ironbottom Sound, north of Savo Island. Rain beads on steel. The bridge of the Japanese battleship Kirishima hums with low voices, the hiss of voice tubes, the scrape of boots on wet planks. A young gunnery officer brings binoculars up to his eyes and sees only blackness. Then a flat white sun blooms overhead. A star shell hangs, brutal and cold, and the sea turns hard and pale like carved bone. You can almost feel your pupils clamp down. Out on the horizon, other suns wink into being in a measured ladder, American illumination fired with the precision of a metronome. The night is suddenly a set. Every line, every splash, mercilessly lit. In the glare, geysers of water rise near Kirishima's bow, straight columns that fracture into rain. The shockwave taps the bridge windows like fingers. Somewhere below, a telephone talker repeats fire orders, his voice clipped, too fast, trying not to sound afraid. On the open bridge wing, Captain Iwabuchi Sanji keeps his face expressionless. The ship answers his helm with the smooth weight of a great animal. He calls a turn, eyes slivered, searching for the source. But the Americans don't show themselves. Not yet. They live in the whiteness above, machine-born day, clinical as a hospital light. Across the water, hidden in rain squalls, another world sees everything. In the Combat Information Center of USS Washington, a circular screen glows. The SG radar's sweep turns, a ghostly arm tracing again and again the same circle of sea. Blips bloom and fade. A plover drags a grease pencil on a plastic overlay, dots at bearings and ranges, a running spiderweb of movement. Voices cross. Main battery plot, secondary battery, TBS radio. Calm, contained, practiced. At the center of it all, Rear Admiral Willis A leans in, hands on the edge of the plotting table, eyes flicking to the glass. He doesn't need the night. He has numbers. Range, 21,000 yards. Target, large. Course, south by east. Speed, 20. Washington's captain murmurs to the gunnery officer. Elevation angles align in the steel brain below. Mk8 radar feeding the main battery director the kind of truth optical rangefinders only dream about. 9 16-inch rifles rest in the dark, powder charges waiting, breeches closed. You can almost taste the metallic tang in the air, the copper of new casings, the oil trapped in every bolt. A whisper from the talker, flag to all ships, stand by to open fire. Kirishima moves like a dancer in the wash of light. Vice Admiral Nobutake Kondo's force is split across the sound. Heavy cruisers Atago and Takayo somewhere off to starboard. Destroyers weaving. They came to smash Henderson Field again, to break the Marines' night and silence their air by dawn. They have done this before, close, swift, deadly, but not like this, not with the sky stolen from them. From Kirishima's bridge, the Americans are ghosts with thunder in their hands. Back in Washington's main battery director, the director officer clamps his headphones tighter. The world is a set of numbers in his ear, a crosshair in the scope, a dot that refuses to lie. The ship rolls. He waits. The voice of the rangekeeper is steady, measuring, predicting. Fire control math that erases the sea's tricks. The admiral's voice is soft behind him. No hurry, no drama, just a decision traveling down metal nerves. A ship the size of a city, reduced upon a screen to a single, precise point. Fire. Washington coughs flame. The ship rears as if something has struck her from below. 3 great muzzles belch incandescent smoke, split into petals, and the night becomes a violation, a sudden and obscene day from American guns. The first salvo marches the sea, geysers striding in toward Kirishima. The gun crews do not cheer, they listen for the next order. Kirishima feels the first near miss like a frozen fist punching the hull. Spray slams the superstructure, cold needles. The searchlights flick across black water, thrashing, desperate to find a silhouette. Everyone knows the rule: whoever lights himself up first dies. But the darkness is not safe anymore. Optics were the old night, this is a new one. Down on Kirishima's secondary battery deck, men in helmets cradle shells that look like giant gray loaves. The gun captains bark. The barrels hunt, trying to fix on a muzzle flash that's already gone. An officer shouts bearings to the main director, but the numbers refuse to make sense. Ranges jump, bearings drift. When the Americans fire, they go dark immediately, and the sea swallows the clue. On the American side, another plot materializes. A large target shadowing Washington's starboard quarter, flickering in and out, USS South Dakota. Captain Thomas L. At a 1.0 pace, Gatch has brought his ship in bold, too bold, her silhouette occasionally lifted against distant fires. Then a ripple of trouble runs through her. A short, sharp cascade. Electrical failures snipping systems like strings on a violin. Radio's dead, some radar sets blind. In a place where numbers are vision, South Dakota starts to lose her sight. Washington's SG sees her, and sees beyond her. Multiple returns. One is bigger. The director officer breathes out, trims elevation. The second salvo roars. In Kirishima's bridge, a shock comes like the crack of a giant whip. A column of water and flame erupts near the after superfiring turret. Fragments rain like hot sleet. Iwabuchi's hand grips the rail hard enough to hurt. Somebody is bleeding. A signalman cups a lamp, ready to blink Morse across blackness. But where? To whom? The star shells sift lower, and the night scabs over the sound again. Then more white blossoms snap into being, one after the other, a ladder climbing across the sky. The sea changes color, to silver, to pewter, to oil. The Americans pick their moments, their light. They do not need it to see, they use it to blind. In Washington's CIC, the plot rotates, neat and implacable. A destroyer contact scythes between two larger echoes, Japanese destroyers rushing in with long lances ready. A petty officer flips open a recognition slide, checks the silhouette shapes, folds it away. Large target now 17,000, a voice says. Another quiet order. Shift to continuous fire. The mechanical calculators hum, shells are hoisted, breaches cycle with brutal rhythm. The ship is a machine for placing steel in precise coordinates at precise moments. Nothing more, nothing less. South Dakota, half blind, drifts where she should not be. Japanese lookouts finally catch her against the sky, and searchlights snap on like open eyes. Beams rake her, hold her, and in that instant she is naked. Every gun barrel, every rangefinder bridge carved in white. Japanese salvos begin to converge, bright spears in the rain. Splashes walk toward her, then sparks along her superstructure. Hits scoring metal. Men duck, systems die. Back on Washington's bridge, a few heads turn toward the glare. She is still dark, still unseen, still holding the angle. The Admiral's gaze doesn't lift from the plot. The big echo is turning, trying to comb the salvos, trying to turn anger into geometry. It won't be enough. The next order leaves his mouth in a voice you can hardly hear, and yet it fills the ship. Because in 10 seconds, the night will change again. The order rides the wires like a pulse. Washington steadies, a black mountain sliding through rain. In the main battery plotting room, dials settle, gears mesh, the stable vertical hums. The rangekeeper feeds out a new solution: course, speed, wind, roll. Above, 3 16-inch rifles lift their muzzles like wolves scenting, and all at once the ship's soul moves forward into the barrels. Second salvo, fire. The night ruptures again. A drumbeat of light pounds the horizon, each flash etching the pagoda mast and turret crowns of a target no American eye can yet see. In that moment, you can feel the whole ship flex, a giant taking a step. Men clamp their jaws and count. 1 Mississippi, 2, waiting for the distant, soft thunder of impact. The sea answers with tall white pillars that straddle Kirishima, brackets closing like a jaw. On Kirishima's bridge, the world becomes a hailstorm of steel and light. A shell smashes short along the starboard beam, and the blast rakes the upper works with shrapnel. Glass crazes. A helmsman flinches, steadies, keeps his hands on the wheel. Captain Iwabuchi's voice is even. Starboard 20. The deck tilts, foam shears along the bow, the ship trying to comb away the marching splashes. A petty officer drags a wounded signalman from the bridge wing. The signal lamp clatters and rolls, lens spider-webbed. Across Ironbottom Sound, searchlight beams scribble madly, seeking an enemy that refuses to become a shape. Japanese rangefinders hunt for bright clues, muzzle flashes, stacks of smoke, the faint gleam of wake lines. But the Americans fire and disappear, their guns gulping the night and spitting it back in measured intervals. A lieutenant of gunnery closes his fist, as if to crush an insect, whispers to no one, "How are they seeing us?" In Washington's director, the radar trace blooms steady now, steady like a heartbeat. Large target, range 16,500, bearing, mark. Voices are low, unhurried, inhumanly calm, inside a ship vibrating with volcanoes. Admiral Willis A leans in, listening to numbers the way some men listen to music. He has hunted ducks before dawn in Kentucky mist. He understands shooting where the thing will be, not where it is. "Commence firing, continuous," he says, as if ordering breakfast, and 9 big guns take that as scripture. Third salvo, fire. This time something red flowers in Kirishima's afterstructure. A hit. You don't hear it so much as feel a different kind of impact rip through the deck, the tearing crack of armor sundered. A secondary fire springs up, then another. Ammunition hoists halt on command, belts locked to keep fire from racing downward. In the main director, Japanese optics tremble, rain streaks the lenses. Voices layer and collide as bearings refuse to settle. The plot is chaos. In the white glare of an American star shell, the wake astern shows a hesitant S-curve where the helmsman is trying to throw the next salvo off. It doesn't work. The next American roar comes right on time. On Washington's starboard quarter, the situation goes from bad to worse for South Dakota. Searchlights crank to her, latch on, then more beams nail her in place. Her silhouette hardens, bridge, rangefinders, open gun mounts lit like X-rays. The air around her starts to twinkle oddly. Sparks, then fountains as hits bite in. Splinters rip along passageways, antennas whip away, fire control lines go dead like nerves cut. Captain Thomas L. Gatch curses under his breath and fights to keep her weapons singing, but the board in damage control lights up like a city at night. A radio man points to a blank panel and can only shrug. He can't even tell Washington she's taking a beating. On Otago's flag bridge, Vice Admiral Nobutake Kondo watches South Dakota burning in glimpses and decides the fight. The Americans are one battleship. Wounded, he will finish her. He orders the turn to cut her off, to bring his heavy cruiser's long, flat broadsides to bear. Somewhere beyond, the destroyers ready long lance torpedoes, silver spears that have killed so many Allied ships in this very water. The Admiral's staff murmurs agreement. It's a plan born of doctrine and of success. They can't see the other shape sliding in the dark. Washington is still unlit, still unseen. The ocean tries to betray her. Spray flung off the bow, a flicker of light at a hatchway, a brief glow through seams in a ready room, but it's swallowed by rain. In the Combat Information Center, the trace of that large target blooms, falls, blooms again. Range 12,500. The director officer's voice is a metronome. Up 200. The gunnery officer phones main. Super elevate 2. You can smell cordite and hot oil and the ghost of paint scorched from steel. 4th, 5th, 6th salvo. The cadence is the story. With each, Washington's 9-gun broadsides walk inward like a fist closing. Now hits come in clusters. A turret on Kirishima coughs and goes silent. A shell has smashed the barbette skirt and jammed the training gear. Secondary mounts on her port side fall quiet, twisted, the crews flattened behind blown-open shields. Fire licks up near the after steering stations, a hungry orange that breathes with the wind. You can hear voices below deck change timbre, from crisp orders to something ragged. Steering reports, sluggish. The helmsman feels it first, in his palms, the delayed answer of iron that isn't iron anymore, but something half dead. Hard to starboard, Iwabuchi orders, and for a heartbeat the ship obeys. Then there's a shudder, deep and wrong, as if the sea has seized her. The rudder does not return to center. It keeps biting. The bow yawns away, unasked. The officer of the deck's eyes flick to the compass and then to the captain. No one speaks what they all suspect. Washington's 5-inch .38s wake up, shrill and purposeful, radar-fed and spiteful. They rake the Japanese destroyers trying to close for a torpedo attack, stitching white lines through spray. Tracers spill out like sewing needles, and one destroyer staggers in the light of its own fires. The range to the big target collapses. 9,000. The gunnery officer doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't need to. In the plotting room, the line on the grease pencil track curves like a scythe. A shell from Washington's next salvo plunges in steep, the way night shots do when the range comes down and the arcs grow fat. It finds a place men rarely see, the vulnerable spaces around steering engines and shafts. The explosion turns gears to teeth and teeth to shrapnel. Below, a petty officer screams once and then does not. Oil bursts from lines like black rain. A petty engineer grabs a wheel that no longer speaks to a rudder, spins it, nothing. He looks up at a hot overhead that glows faintly now, and in his face is the awful understanding. At a 1.0x pace, Kirishima begins a slow, involuntary right turn. On Washington's bridge, someone finally exhales. Not joy, not triumph. Confirmation. Target now swinging starboard, steady rate. The main battery plot sings that one quiet note every gunner longs for, repeatable motion. Admiral Lee doesn't grin, he only says, keep punching. The deck answers with another broadside, and another. And yet, this is the moment when fate gets greedy. With South Dakota wounded and groping, with Kirishima bleeding but not yet dead, with destroyers in the dark and torpedoes somewhere under the skin of the sea, Admiral Lee has to choose, save his partner, or finish the hunt. Which way does the Black Mountain turn? For 3 seconds, the bridge of USS Washington is a cathedral of silence. Rain ticks. The big ship breathes. Admiral Willis A. doesn't move his hands from the edge of the chart table. On the voice circuit, South Dakota is a hole. No reply, only static and the distant groan of her wounded metal through the mist. The choice sits between his shoulders like weight. Maintain fire, he says. Hold dark. Then to the con, almost conversational. Come right a few degrees. Open her a touch. It's not bravado, it's geometry. Edge away from the likely torpedo lanes while keeping the solution sweet. Below, the plotting room answers with a precise ripple of motion. Dials nudged, cams set, the rangekeeper swallowing new bearings and spitting out angles. The Mk8 director tracks without a heartbeat, a blind man who can see through rain. The 16-inch rifles elevate with slow certainty. If you close your eyes, you can feel the power roll down the length of the barrels like a wave running a beach. On Kirishima's bridge, Captain Iwabuchi Sanji is a man listening to his ship's secrets go quiet. After steering, no answer. The messenger repeats it into the steam and smoke, voice flat. The deck carries a new tremor now, a slow tug to starboard that fights the helm, a wounded animal turning on its own. Fire licks at the after superstructure and breathes in the wind. Counterflood, Iwabuchi orders. Keep her hands. The heel eases, but the swing does not. The radio crackles from Vice Admiral Kondo aboard Atago. Orders, bearings, the calm arithmetic of a doctrine honed on past nights. Smash the cripple. Finish her. South Dakota burns where the searchlights hold her. You can see her for once even without star shells, flare of secondary guns, incandescent wounds along the upper works. Captain Thomas L. Gatch fights the ship by touch, systems stuttering, men hauling ammunition by hand along walkways glittering with rain and sparks. Shells slam and ricochet, paint blisters. A radar repeater is a dead gray eye. Keep the 5-inch going, he barks, voice low. Don't give them a quiet second. Somewhere aft, a crewman crosses himself with dirty fingers and jams another clip into a ready rack. Washington slides past the mess. Nobody waves, nobody turns on a light. The Black Mountain keeps her angle on the trace. Large target, bearing steady, range bleeding down like a clock melting. 8,000. The gunnery officer's voice is a scalpel. Deflection, 0.1 right. The director officer breathes out, takes up the slack. The ship heaves and then releases. Fire. The salvo doesn't boom tonight, it cracks with a flayed edge, the sound of hard weather and great power. A beat later, Kirishima shudders from the keel. A shell drives through the upper belt and strikes deep. Another punches the barbette of number 3 turret and turns machinery to teeth. The turret stalls, then droops, the great gun house suddenly an inert crown. Flames in the after steering spaces climb into a throat of smoke. Down below, men with wrenches and willpower try to force valves that burned shut a minute ago. One of them bangs a wheel with his fist until the skin splits. Nothing. On Atago's flag bridge, Kondo watches his prey. Except the prey is wrong. The silhouette in the lights isn't the one biting you. Where is the other? Where is the second American battleship? For a heartbeat, he sees nothing but rain and glare. And then, in the very far dark, he thinks he sees it. A shape that isn't a wave. The staff murmurs, long lance tracks and angles of vanishing, mathematics of murder. Press the torpedo attack, he says. Hints of wakes begin to line out in the rain, white scars uncoiling at 40 knots. Washington's Combat Information Center reads the sea like Braille. Multiple fast contacts forward of the target, possible destroyers closing. The Admiral's head tips a half-inch. Secondaries. The 5-inch 38s answer like terriers, rapid, spiteful, perfect for this kind of night. Directors fed by SG and Mk4 radar open up and comb the approaches with bright sewing needles of tracer. A Japanese destroyer, a long, lean shadow, bites a line of hits and staggers, then disappears in its own steam cloud. Another throws fish and yaws away, the arcs of its torpedoes already written when it dies. Kirishima's gunners in open mounts keep working through sparks and slicing wind. They don't see their killer. They aim at the light burning South Dakota and pray some of their shells will vanish into the black and find the American they cannot name. Even as their ship begins the slow carousel of a jammed rudder, they load and fire, faces smeared with a paste of sweat and rain and soot. A shell lands near the forward superstructure. Men disappear behind a screen of white that comes down like a curtain. When it clears, a signal flag hangs in ribbons. Range 7,200. The number is a promise. Washington's bow plungers, those great shells made to fall steep, begin finding angles where armor is thinner, angles men in war colleges calculate on chalkboards and never expect to see lit by rain. One drives into a boiler room, steam shrieks, sudden and animal. Another shears something vital within the con. Survivors later insist the ship flinched at that hit, as if its brain took a blow. The Black Mountain doesn't slow. She is a metronome. Lee takes his eyes from the plot once and looks out into the rain. You can imagine what he sees. Not much. A smear of light where South Dakota is held on a rack. A darker dark where the sea climbs to meet a shape no Japanese man ever expected to be there, firing by feel, by numbers, by an electric eye. He returns his gaze to the circle of glass. "Keep punching," he repeats, the phrase a spell. White scratches arrive off Washington's port bow. First one, then another, then too many to count. Torpedoes. The watch on the bridge calls them out with a voice you would use reading the weather. The con answers with a turn that feels like a big ship dancing. Rudder over just enough to comb the tracks. Screws biting harder as the engine room rides orders down the pipes. A wake flashes past like a snake under a lantern and is gone. Another passes along the starboard quarter. Too close to measure with numbers, measured instead with the feeling in a man's teeth. Washington's aft turrets speak, and you swear you can feel the concussion through the soles of your feet. The salvos stack like hammer blows. Kirishima's list deepens. Counterflooding helps, then hurts, then doesn't matter. Fires reach upward, flare, gutter, flare again, in gusts that blow spray clean out across the channel as if the rain itself is retreating. The ship keeps turning right, a wounded beast circling its own blood. Somewhere in that circle lies the last throw of the night. Orders hiss from Kondo's bridge. Secondary ships trim their courses, and South Dakota claws for shade, still bleeding, still breathing. If Washington stays, she can finish the kill. If she lingers, the fish will find her. Lee picks a line only he can see. Come left. Calm. Exact. Final. Washington answers the turn like a boxer slipping a hook. Big, fluid, indifferent to spray lashing the bridge windows. Come left, Lee had said, and the helmsman made a city move like a skiff. The angle to the target widens by degrees, enough to comb the white scratches of torpedo wakes, not enough to spoil the firing solution. Below, the rangekeeper accepts the new geometry and keeps singing the same cold song. Range 6,800. The number is intimate now. The 16-inch rifles lower a breath. Fire. Kirishima's world breaks in layers. A shell dives and finds a boiler room. Steam screams metallic and primal, blasting down passageways, peeling paint like sunburn. Another punches the upper belt and rips into spaces where men lived an hour ago. Now it's a thundering kiln. The after steering station, already wounded, takes a blow that turns controls to slag. The great ship keeps carving right, not from will, but compulsion. A circle that tightens as if a hand has gripped her keel and won't let go. On the bridge, Captain Iwabuchi's face is a mask in a theater of sparks. "Flood starboard voids, open all," he orders. "Keep her hands." Valves wheel. Seawater thunders in. The list eases, then returns from the other side, the pendulum of a body losing balance. The XO shouts through a voice tube to the engine rooms. The answer comes back strangled. Steam pressure falling, casualties. A messenger trips, catches himself on the coaming, blood and rain indistinguishable on his sleeve. At a 1.0 Navdakis Admiral Kondo's orders, tack and wheel, in signal lamp blinks, and radio whispers from Otago, press the torpedo attack, crush the burning American battleship in your lights. Japanese destroyers dart, trails of white scrawled in the black. Long lances leap into the invisible, enormous lungs of compressed oxygen carrying them farther than anyone in this war believes. But Washington has turned the key in the lock and stepped through. Her secondary swat hard in the dark, radar-nursed gunfire stitching approach lanes, shredding one lean shadow into a storm of sparks, driving another blind into its own smoke. South Dakota limps out of the spotlight's fist, bleeding and furious. She vanishes into rain for a heartbeat, then reappears in silhouette, angle changed, wounds shining wet. Captain Gatch's jaw is set tight. He keeps the 5-inch .38s talking, the only answer a wounded ship can give at a night like this. Somewhere on her starboard side, a fire controlman uses a pencil to write a bearing on his palm because the plot board is gone. The pencil snaps. He uses the broken half anyway. Washington's third turret slews smooth, the director officer counting his own breath to the rate of roll. The director's on light is a small, unwavering star. Salvo, fire. The concussion hammers your chest. The ship's mass answers. Out in the rain, Kirishima's forward superstructure coughs flame. The pagoda mast shudders as if a giant has shaken it. A moment later, a shape in the aft gunhouse slumps. The barrel of number 3 turret droops to an angle that means exactly one thing: dead machinery. There is a moment, just a moment, when men on both bridges taste iron and know what it is. The turning that won't stop. The rudder that won't come back. The circle tightening of itself. Every sailor knows what a jammed rudder means. It's almost a superstition, something you tell new men as a story. Tonight, it is not a story. It is a wheel in a man's hands that spins and has no consequence at the far end. Rudder jammed starboard, Kirishima's after-steering telephone says finally in the voice of a clerk finishing a grocery list. The bridge goes quiet in a way that can only happen when everyone hears the same word at the same time. Iwabuchi's nod is tiny. Counterflood port. Prepare to scuttle charges. Not yet. He won't give her up while guns can still answer. Pride is a fuel of its own. Otago's flag bridge sees South Dakota slide away and understands too late that the shadow in the far dark is the real enemy. The second battleship, a staff officer says, as if naming it changes the fact. Kondo's face doesn't change. Destroyers, smoke, and attack. The doctrine that won knights off Java, off Savo, off Tassafaranga is all he has. But doctrine never met an electric eye that can count you coming. Washington's 5-inch directors track a destroyer through smoke as if smoke is a suggestion. Tracers walk up its length. A white flame blooms amid ships. It vanishes behind a stand of rain. When it re-emerges, it is smaller, slumped, a shape hurrying to become a memory. Another lights the world with the brief daylight of a torpedo detonation. Something far out has met one of their fish. No American ship coughs. Somewhere in the black, a torpedo runs out and rolls, gurgling like a great thing asleep. Range 5,500. The voice is tender, almost. Washington's shells begin to fall at angles so steep their descent is a kind of judgment. They drop into decks, through beams, into boilers, into the space behind the face. One finds near the magazines. Flooding teams work by touch to keep the sea hungry there, not fire. Another shells the conning tower's spurts and claws at the nerve center. A petty officer in the plot, one of those sailors who never looks up, feels his pencil move with a certainty he'll remember for the rest of his life. Kirishima is fire eating its own smoke. The list creeps, the circle tightens. Men go over the side in lines of 3, like recruits in a drill, because the sea is the only cool left in the world. On the starboard side, a boat swings and drops, then slams and breaks apart in stampeding men's hands. They ride the splinters down. On the port side, someone cuts free a Carly float with a knife that slips twice before it bites. A chief scrapes his knuckles on bronze and doesn't feel it. Cease firing? Washington's gunnery officer asks the question like a man who knows the answer, but also knows you always ask. Lee's eyes remain on the plot. The trace is a comet smearing its own tail now, the circle obvious even in that green ghost world. He waits 1 heartbeat, then 2. Shift to targets of opportunity. Keep clear of torpedo water. It is mercy drawn as math. The black mountain begins to edge away, still dark, still unseen, moving like something that grew out of the night rather than arrived in it. Kirishima burns, circles, and begins to settle, slow as a decision made hours ago, arriving at last. Scuffling charges are set, seacocks spin. Orders are calm, because calm is all that holds the gears of order in place. In compartments where voices bounce off steel, men say goodbye by not saying anything at all, just passing by each other like stations in a familiar corridor. On the bridge, Iwabuchi looks once more toward the place where the American must be. There is nothing there but rain. South Dakota drifts into anonymity, her lights gone, her wounds beginning to steam in the damp air. She is alive, and that is a kind of victory men will count when the sun comes. Washington ghosts back into the night lanes she knows, radar eyes sweeping, secondaries taking punctuation shots at phantoms the SG says are real. The Admiral hasn't moved much at all. He doesn't need to. The ocean moves around him in rings of consequence. Sometime after 03, Kirishima rolls. Her great guns peek at the sky one last time like surprised animals, then they go under. The sea closes over the work of thousands of hands, over doctrine, over courage that met numbers and could not make them lie. The water hisses where fires meet it. In the darkness nearby, men cough salt into their lungs and blink at a horizon they can't see. In a few hours, dawn will show everything, the slicks, the rafts, the truth written in smoke smudges over Ironbottom Sound. But before the light, while the engines of ships that escape the reckoning growl low, a different realization begins to crowd into the spaces between orders on Japanese bridges and into rooms in Tokyo where maps wait. What hunted us tonight? And how did it see in a night that wasn't a night anymore? November 15th, 1942, 0512 hours.
Ironbottom Sound exhales. Dawn leaks across the slot as a thin line of pewter. The night's white wounds begin to show. Oil slicks that look like bruises, rafts of splintered planking, a life ring rotating slowly like a clock hand. On the gray-green margin of Savo Island, palms bend to a wind that smells scorched. Out beyond the reef, a canvas of seabirds writes itself over small dark heads and bobbing shapes.
You can almost hear the ocean swallow, a steady, indifferent intake, erasing the machine noise of a few hours ago. A Marine on the ridge above Henderson Field cups a hand to his brow. In the low light, he can just make out something that wasn't there last night. Nothing where a battleship had been. He can't see the weapon that did it because the weapon has no shape you can photograph. It hums in a dark room on the other side of the Sound, and it draws circles. Aboard the heavy cruiser Otago, Vice Admiral Nobutake Kondo stands in a place that is ordinarily bright with confidence. The flag bridge feels smaller in morning light. The chart shows too many pencil corrections. Staff officers collect messages with pinched fingers, paper spotted with spray, and in one case, a fleck of blood. The Admiral's face is expressionless as he reads the after-action fragments. He has language for searchlights, for flares, for torpedoes flung like spears into darkness. He has no comfortable words for being watched by something you cannot see. He murmurs one anyway. Denpa, the radiated thing, radar. Down the passage, a young communications officer writes it in neat characters into the margin of his log, then scratches it out, then writes it again. He's never seen an enemy night like that. Star shells appearing where they wanted them, gunfire that did not need light to be sure. He remembers a moment in the black when the sea around his own ship stood up in white pillars for no reason he could name. It felt like judgment. South of Savo, in a steel room with no windows, USS Washington's Combat Information Center glows the color of bottled dawn. The plot is already wiped clean, a new sheet clipped beneath clear plastic, grease pencil tins stacked like shells. A petty officer sands a pencil to a vicious point and pockets it. On the bulkhead, a hand-lettered sign is taped with 2 pieces of signal book tape. Trust the scope. A seaman third shakes his hands out. He didn't know he'd been gripping them, and laughs once, quietly, at nothing. He will tell his kids, if he lives that long, that he felt like he was steering by a star only he could see. On the bridge, Rear Admiral Willis A accepts a mug of coffee with the same small nod he used for ranges and bearings. The night's rain has made his slicker shine like sealskin. He looks exactly the same as he did at 2 a.m. Beneath that calm, you understand, is the realization that will echo through every wardroom on the coast of this war. Eyes lie. Numbers, fed by a new electric eye, don't. It wasn't always like that. A month ago, on the high black water off Cape Esperance, another flag officer, Rear Admiral Norman Scott, took a different kind of night into his hands. He had trained his cruisers in a new trick, SG sets feeding bearings to guns before optics could confirm. On the light cruiser Helena, a lieutenant watched a steady, impossible pip glide down the scope and felt the hair on his arms bristle. "When do we open fire?" his captain asked across the TBS. "Now," came back, and Helena's first salvos punched the dark where she was told to aim. Japanese cruisers Komatsushima's column, Furutaka and Ooba, walked into a night that wasn't a night for the first time and staggered. That was a beginning. Then came the dreadful schoolhouse of November 13, the first naval battle of Guadalcanal, when Admiral Daniel J. Callaghan and Scott Doth threw ships into a point-blank tangle among the islands and died in it. Radar was there, singing, but human habit pulled eyes to the windows and searchlight shutters, and doctrine made bright targets out of brave bridges. Hiei died in that fight, yes, but at a price that left the sea boiling with wreckage. It felt like a lesson with too much blood in it to learn. Last night, Lee changed the student and the teacher. He put the scope in charge. Morning pulls back the sheets on consequence. Destroyers ease among survivors, ropes snaking down into hands that have become claws. A Japanese sailor blinks up at the gray belly of a ship and sees not a flag, but a hull number. He will remember the number, not the nation, because that is what filled the sky when the star shells burned. Aboard one Japanese tin can, a petty officer gently pries a pilot's map tube from a drowning man's shoulder and shoves him afloat. Together they listen for planes. They know Henderson Field will awake soon, and the daylight belongs to Marines with SBDs that dive with the same inevitability the radar traced in the night. In a room far from the sea, the Naval General Staff in Tokyo. Pages arrive, beaded with the damp of long radio routes. A staff captain underlines phrases with a brush. Enemy fire, accurate from first salvos. Darkened ship not visually sighted. Illumination not required. Vice Admiral Matome Ugaki, Yamamoto's chief of staff, reads a summary and feels the cold bite of a pattern. The Navy that preached night fighting is discovering that the night itself is no longer an ally. It has been rented out to a machine. The conversations after are careful. They talk of new radars, Type 22s and 13s coming, a trickle of sets that will never be many, never be enough. They talk of doctrine, of impatience, of a need to strike daylight blows across the slot before the Americans can marshal their invisible weapon. They do not speak the simplest truth out loud, that a thing you cannot see has just taken the best of their art and turned it into a map the enemy can read. At Henderson Field, Marines lay a hand on the warm flanks of their SBDs and TBFs as the sun finally pushes up. The strip is pocked, scabbed, alive. Pilots climb ladders and look east. Targets of opportunity, an operations officer says, and points in the direction the night came from. The island breathes like a living thing, satisfied. On a mess table, someone has written in charcoal, "We own the day." The joke this morning is that someone offshore owns the night. In Washington's CIC, the talk is quiet, almost reverent. A seaman tells another he never saw the enemy ship. "Didn't have to," the other says, tapping the console with two knuckles. One of the older chiefs hears them and grins into his coffee. "Boys, we just taught him a new prayer." Then he stops smiling, because he knows prayers only hold when you keep the faith. The machine alone is not the miracle. The miracle is men who let go of searchlights in their heads. Out in the Sound, the last of Kirishima's survivors are being lifted into boats. A young officer, barely more than a boy, leans on the gunwale and stares at the pale sky. He thinks of the moment when the water turned white without warning, and the bridge windows erupted into cobwebs. He thinks of how the Americans never showed him a face to hate, only a fact. What happens when a navy built on eyesight fights an enemy who sees by electricity? In the answer lies the next year of this war. New rooms on American ships called Combat Information Centers multiplied. New training that makes junior officers read glass instead of clouds. New admirals who trust the green light more than the bright one. And across the slot, commanders who have lived by moonlight will have to choose, change, or keep throwing men into a night that is no longer theirs. Because the next time a black mountain slides out of the rain, it will be sooner, it will be calmer, it will be inevitable. November 16, 1942, 10:02 hours, Tulagi Anchorage. Rainwater still snakes along Washington's decks as the big ship rides easy at anchor, gray against a grayer sky. In the wardroom, the air smells like coffee and wet wool. A chief spreads a chart on the table, its corners held down by shell casings, polished by 100 hands. Captain Glenn B. Davis listens while the gunnery officer,
eyes rimmed red, voice steady, walks through the night using only numbers. You can feel the room learn. They are not reliving, they are rewriting. Down a ladder and 2 sharp turns away, the Combat Information Center hums with a quieter life.
The lights are low, the glow from scopes soft as morning through canvas. A grease pencil ticks. A plotter's sleeve leaves a faint comet tail where it brushes plastic. Somebody has taped up a phrase in messy block letters. Look here first. It could be a joke. It isn't. A junior officer traces the sweep on the SG scope with a fingertip you can't help noticing still trembles. He whispers to the technician beside him. We saw them before we knew we saw them. The technician smiles like a man who has known a secret and is relieved not to keep it alone anymore. Across the water, South Dakota lies sullen and battered. On her damage control deck, a board is covered in chalked scars. Sections out, lines cut, the map of a ship that survived because men refused to stop drawing lines between broken things. Captain Thomas L. Gotch writes his own report in tight script. It is not a lament. He lists failures like facts, and then he underlines one sentence twice. Maintain strict blackout and trust radar solutions. He signs it with a hand that shakes once and does not shake again. On the far side of this ocean, in rooms with tatami and maps heavy with red pins, officers of the Imperial Japanese Navy stand over reports that make their own hands still. The words are precise. Hits from first salvo. Unobserved enemy. Illumination not necessary. A young gunnery officer, fresh from the academy where he memorized range tables and practiced with split-image rangefinders until his eyes watered, reads a survivor's line. The night became white where they wished and black where they wished. He closes his eyes and sees a star shell bloom, then go out, then another appear where it shouldn't. He thinks, we do not control the dark anymore. At sea level, the realization is mechanical. In the destroyer tender anchored off Tulagi, sailors run coaxial table through a bulkhead and mount a repeater where a peacetime painting once hung. CIC, someone says, tasting the letters. Combat, Information, Center. A box with a brain. Soon there will be one on everything that fights. Cruisers, battleships, destroyers, carriers. Standard boards. Standard voice procedure. Plotters trained to draw a running range like musicians reading time. This isn't a gadget. It's a room full of decisions made ready. Listen close and you can hear the hinge creak. A month ago, at Cape Esperance, Rear Admiral Norman Scott proved a sketch of this idea with a handful of SG sets and a willingness to fire at pips. He paid in blood for a lesson half learned in the first night battle off Guadalcanal, when men lit searchlights because their bones told them to. Last night, Rear Admiral Willis A. Ching closed the book. He kept his ship dark and let an electric eye sing the target into his guns. There was nothing theatrical about it. It was cold, it was precise, it worked. The technology itself feels almost indecent in its cleverness. 10-centimeter waves slice through rain and sea clutter that smothers older sets. Magnetrons the size of a coffee mug birth energy that travels out, touches steel, and comes home with truth. The Mk8 fire control radar paints elevation and range so fine that the old superstition of spotting the fall of shot becomes something like nostalgia. Inside the black hull of a battleship, a new organ has grown, one that sees without looking. It is not glamorous. It is a scope and a table and a man with a pencil who will never be called a hero in a newspaper. On the Japanese side, the conversation shifts from romance to arithmetic with a kind of grief. They are geniuses with torpedoes that run farther than anyone believes. They have night optics that turn starlight into threads of definition. They teach their destroyer captains to move like fencers and their cruisers to fire by instinct. But none of it matters if a dark ship can place 9 shells on you as if your hull had been measured in advance. A staff officer in truck draws a box around 3 characters: Shin Denton, new radar. Budgets will be argued, sets will be allocated. A handful of ships will get them. There will not be enough technicians to tend them. Doctrine is a harder thing to replace than a gun mount. You can feel the ripples from last night, leaving concentric impacts on everything that floats here. In Noumea, an operations officer pencils a remark in an order for a cruiser division slated to patrol the slot. Emphasize radar-directed gunfire, rehearse night station keeping on scope bearings. In a destroyer wardroom on Espiritu Santo, young lieutenants sling chairs around the mess table and practice calling out torpedo tracks on voice circuits that can't be seen. A signalman who used to worship his Aldous lamp tucks it carefully into a locker as if putting away a family heirloom. He wipes his hands on his trousers and asks the CIC officer if there is a place for him in the dark. There is. On a sandy strip behind Henderson Field, a marine photographer cranks a handheld camera as survivors from the night bob in close. One Japanese sailor stares into the lens, water running out of his hair in black rivulets. There is no hatred in his face. There is only aw's smaller, meaner cousin, bewilderment. He was trained by men who taught him the night like a catechism. Last night, someone changed the catechism without warning. He asks a question no one on the beach can answer. How did you find us in the dark? The answer is coming. It will arrive in places with names as sharp as the wakes that cut them. Kula Gulf, Vela Gulf, Empress Augusta Bay, where cruisers and destroyers will fight not as hunters who happen to have radar, but as machines that make a new kind of hunt possible. A quiet admiral will teach an impatient captain to wait for the pip to settle before he burns powder. A destroyer skipper with quick hands and a mind like a knife will use radar not to shoot first, but to shoot right. You can feel the war lean toward that future. You can feel the men on both sides lean with it, some willingly, some not. The night is no longer a cloak, it is a map. And somewhere up the slot, a column of destroyers, Tokyo Express, long and lean, comes hissing down the black water as if nothing has changed at all. November 30, 1942, 23:20 hours. Off Tassafaronga Point, Guadalcanal. Spray lifts cold off the bow of USS Minneapolis as she leads a gray procession down the slot. 5 cruisers in line ahead, destroyers fanned out like lean dogs. The sea is dark velvet, the sky a lid. In the plotting rooms, the new green eyes glow. SG scopes paint moving pips. A voice on TBS, calm, clipped, belongs to Rear Admiral Carlton H. Wright. Targets bearing green 060, stand by to fire. On the Japanese side, 8 destroyers slide low and fast, decks packed with supply drums, the mission as simple as it is suicidal. Run the gauntlet, feed the starving army on Guadalcanal. Rear Admiral Raizo Kanaka stands with his cap pulled down tight against the wind on Naganami's bridge, one hand on the window frame, eyes narrowing. He doesn't see Americans, he feels them in the behavior of the night. He murmurs to his torpedo officer. Orders move quick and quiet, the kind you give when your ship's real weapons breathe under the deck planks. In Minneapolis's Combat Information Center, a plotter traces the steady crawl of the Japanese column. Range 16,000. Bearings ripple down voice circuits. The cruisers hold their line, guns trained to a world no one can yet see with eyes. The destroyers forward.
Fletcher, Drayton, Perkins, Maury ready their own fish, making numbers into angles with a nervousness neither radar nor training can completely smooth. You can smell the mix of hope and cordite. Open fire. Minneapolis's forward turrets lift and punch the night. The opening salvo reaches across water like a thrown wall. Along the line, New Orleans, Pensacola, Northampton, Honolulu join in, muzzle flashes stitching a barcode in the dark. The first victim appears as if conjured by their fire. A single Japanese destroyer, Takanami, takes the hits meant for a column. Her bow erupts, white flame claws up her mast. A moment later, she is a smoking pyre drifting with a will of its own. Men on American bridges exhale. Radar found them. Fire crushed them. The lesson seems so clean you could write it on a chalkboard. Tanaka's lesson has no chalk. It has steel and oxygen. In the shadow of Takanami's dying light, the rest of the Japanese column has already turned to make its answer. Long lance torpedoes, Type 93s, lie along their decks like sleeping great fish. Orders hiss, gyros set, spreads decided not by panic but by doctrine practiced until it lived in hands. Hatches clang, then sigh open. Tubes elevate a breath. A line of white wakes begin to write themselves across a dark no human eye can read. Back on Minneapolis's bridge, the world is muzzle blast and the smell of expended powder. The SG pips shift. There's confusion on the TBS, the clutter of voices that comes when you believe you are winning. Cease, check fire, targets obscured. Two ships slow, one speeds, a ripple no battle plan wants. The American destroyer's torpedoes run out into a geometry designed by optimism and miss. The night doesn't care. It carries what is launched across it with equal patience. The first clue is wrong. It's not a flash of enemy guns, but the sea itself standing up. A white ridge rears next to Minneapolis's bow and slaps her with the flat, brutal palm of a god no one worships. The ship shudders. Then comes the sound you don't hear until after your brain has decided to, a deep belly crack. Her bow is suddenly less a shape than a broken thought. Steam screams. Men grab at a deck that isn't where it was. New Orleans is a length astern, steady, beautiful in her straightness, and then she leaps as if someone has lifted her by the nose. A torpedo gouges her bow and takes it whole. Steel that once held anchors and hope becomes shrapnel. A turret tilts toward the black like a curious balcony and then is gone. She staggers on, headless and in sudden silence in the places where men were just speaking a sentence. A sailor blinks and finds his world shorter by 30 feet. Pensacola tries to edge clear. Then heat blooms along her port side, orange licking in at the casemate doors. Oil sloshes, finds a spark, explodes into a rolling, angry fire that paints her silhouette the way enemy gunners pray for. She becomes her own illumination. Her wake throws off sheets of flame, and the men on her stern feel the heat in the soft skin inside their elbows. Somewhere above, an officer shouts for speed, as if speed is a lever you can throw hard enough to outrun luck. Northampton takes 2 fish and keeps a kind of dignity that chills your teeth. She holds her course while water pours in through new mouths in her side. Damage control teams crouch by flashlights whose light is the wrong color, too intimate. Pumps thrum. The list sits at 3 degrees, then 5, then 8. A bosun rails against the tilt with curses used up by 1,000 years of sailors, and none of them stop water. On Naganami, Tanaka watches the American battle line erupt into chaos painted by its own fires. His face doesn't move. He knows what this is. The moment when doctrine paid the bill. He orders smoke. His column slides away. Success measured not in ships sunk, but in the drums that can still be kicked off on a black beach before dawn. He has done this too many nights to count.
Each time, the ocean has made him older. Tonight, the sea gives him a gift. It proves that the enemy's new eye is not a god, only a lens. U.S. voice circuits fill with the sounds of men trying not to shout. Torpedoes port, counterflood starboard, all engines ahead. The words answer like hammers. The cons are loud with math, rudder orders, speed calls, pump capacities. In Minneapolis's forward compartments, sailors fight water with wooden shoring and bare hands, teeth chattering from shock and from a different cold, the sudden knowledge that the night has teeth they did not imagine. Honolulu, by some alchemy of luck and helmsmanship, threads the white scars and lives to call bearings in a voice that stays level. She is the one who will say later that radar worked. Men failed it, not by cowardice, by culture, by the honest habit of believing guns end fights and torpedoes begin them. This night reverses it. The enemy used the dark as a map for fish. We used it as a range for shells. By 02, the flare is gone from Pensacola's fires. It is a steadier burn, the kind that will take hours to beat. Northampton's list becomes a posture you can't call a ship's. Lines go over. Men go down them into a sea that has kept all the secrets of every wreck in Ironbottom Sound and offers no counsel. In the smoke and rain, a sailor on New Orleans runs a hand along a sheared bulkhead that used to lead forward and finds only night. He laughs once, a short, broken bark, and then goes to carry another shell, where shells still matter. In the quiet that follows battle, the realization hands itself across American bridges and into CICs like a bullet that didn't detonate. Radar sees. But seeing changes nothing if your ship's habits stand square in the doorway with their arms crossed. Torpedoes at night are not a rumor. They are geometry with fangs. Doctrine will have to learn to turn as fast as a fish. Out there, somewhere up the slot, a destroyer captain named Arleigh Burke studies a scope and grinds his molars until they squeak. He will not forget this lesson. Neither will a cruiser admiral named Aaron Tip Merrill, who will make his men drill the electric night until they can feel it in their bones. Who will own the next dark? The ones with the new eye, or the ones who learn how to move because of it? July 6, 1943, 01:56 hours, Kula Gulf, north of New Georgia. The light cruiser USS Helena breathes fast. On her foredeck, water flashes to diamond dust with each slap of the bow. In her Combat Information Center, a pip slides steady across the SG scope. Enemy destroyers and a light cruiser threading in with the tide. Targets bearing 018, range 18,000, a voice says, already sharpening the pencil. In the director, Helena's 6-inch triples are hungry. She has a reputation now, quick eyes, quicker hands. She does what she was built to do. Open fire. Helena's main battery rips the dark. 3 turrets speaking like a sermon delivered as a shout. Across the water, IJN Jinsu, Rear Admiral Izuzu Isaki's flagship, staggers into white fangs of water, then into hits. Her bridge erupts, her backbone bows. Men who have known only victory at night learn what it is to be dissected by radar-fed gunnery. On American bridges, there is a moment, a bright, heady second, where the lesson seems finished. We see, we shoot, we win. Then the sea writes a correction. Long lance wakes arrive without drama, only the sudden rising of water into a white wall that doesn't belong.
Then the deep, gut-sour punch that robs a ship of breath.
Helena takes the first torpedo under the engine rooms. Steel folds, lights flicker, hums die. In CIC, the scopes lurch, then go black, their green ghosts exorcised by a single blow. On the main deck, a petty officer feels the deck buckle under his boots and cannot make his feet unclench. A minute later, a second fish finds her, then a third. Helena breaks her own silhouette, the middle gone, the bow and stern still themselves, and yet already parts of the sea. She will not see sunrise. Men junk, swim, hang to wreckage, remember the green light that showed them a ship's heart, and wonder what light shows a man his own. The war does not pause. August 6, 7, 1943, 23:33 hours. Vela Gulf. 6 American destroyers move like knives tucked inside a sleeve. The sleeve belongs to Captain Frederick Moosebrugger, who has thought hard about everything that went wrong in Kula Gulf and written a new catechism on a mess table. Hold your fire. Kill with fish first. Let radar make geometry before you make noise. The line splits. 3 ships to throw torpedoes. 3 held back to gun a crippled column once the deed is done. At a 1.0, scopes show the enemy as rippling beads. 4 Japanese destroyers running troops south, Shigure leading, Hagakaze, Arashi, Kawakaze following. Numbers pin them to the plot with a wicked tenderness. Standby tubes, fire 1 through 5. The orders sound almost lazy. They are not. American torpedo wakes run silent, unseen. Old, unreliable Mark 15s that tonight, by grace or by work done in quiet months, behave. A minute feels like a month. Then the night grows teeth in the Japanese line. 1 destroyer is clubbed under the bridge, slows, folds. Another rips open amidships, the fire bright and brief, then the dark swallowing it whole. A third climbs a white wall and falls off its own bow. Shigure slips out, scarred and lucky, her captain later insisting a dud ran under his keel like a shark he could pat. 3 of her sisters are not lucky. They fade beneath water cut by men who never showed them a searchlight. The gun group opens at last, methodical, hosing down what moves with radar-fed 5-inch 38s that stitch flames onto silhouettes. There are no American casualties. When the barrels cool, someone in a CIC draws a small box around the word torpedoes and underlines it twice. The night can be ours if we learn its grammar. November 2nd, 1943, 02:27 hours. Empress Augusta Bay, Bougainville. The sea is inky glass. Rear Admiral Aaron Tip Merrill's light cruisers, Montpelier, Cleveland, Columbia, Denver, slide with 8 destroyers side curtain to swat anything too bold. Men call Merrill electric behind his back. They mean it kindly. He has made his division drill until radar bearings feel like compass points, and until gun captains trust numbers over nerves. The SG scopes whisper that an enemy force is coming heavy. Admiral Sentaro Omori with Haguro and Miyoko, big-shouldered heavy cruisers with gunners who have made a life of killing by moonlight. Contacts, bearing 180, multiple, range 24,000. CICs murmur this like a psalm. Merrill doesn't hunt silhouettes, he herds pips, edges his formation on bearings that exist only as grease pencil tracks. The first illumination that matters tonight is a dauntless pilot's flare dropped from a safe height. But it is almost extra, a theatrical flourish on a play already blocked by scopes. Omori's formation comes untidy, wrong-footed by a night he cannot master.
Sendai zigzags at the front, then catches a full American sentence in 6-inch punctuation. She spasms, burns, is abandoned by degrees. Destroyer Hatsukaze panics in the white whirl and crosses where she should not. Split by a collision, she becomes flotsam and screams. Haguro and Miyoko throw shells toward muzzle flashes that have already vanished. Their salvos fall on water that remembers nothing. American cruisers take hits. The sea is never a one-way mirror, but the line holds, the bearings hold, the numbers hold. When Merrill turns away to avoid the inevitable torpedo spread, it's preemption, not fear, doctrine made into motion. On Japanese bridges, the vocabulary of disbelief tightens to one small, repeated line. The enemy fired first and true without seeing. They see it again later in diary ink, in the careful hand of a surviving officer. American ships fought as if under day at night. Between these battles, a thin, unglamorous revolution happens in rooms no camera loves. CICs multiply, plot tables grow standard, voice procedure becomes liturgy.
A destroyer skipper folds the habit of holding gunfire into his bones. Another one learns to split into torpedo and gun groups and to trust that his friends in the dark will stay where the scope says they are. The green light on the bulkhead becomes the first light a watch officer checks. The Aldous lamp is polished, but it is not king anymore. And on a small bridge that smells like soap, coffee, and wet canvas, a lean captain with a jaw like a plow blade chews the inside of his cheek and watches his scopes as if they are the only windows that matter. His name is Arleigh Burke. His squadron has a nickname now, the Little Beavers, painted jokey on the stacks. He is not jokey. He is waiting for a night to prove a theorem. It will come off Cape St. George. It will be clean like cut glass. November 25, 1943, 01:31 hours. Off Cape St. George, the southern tip of New Ireland. Rain rides the wind in thin sheets, more felt than seen. 5 American destroyers knife through it with their lights out, hulls blacked to nothing. Charles Osborne, Claxton, Dyson, Converse, Spence. On the Charles Osborne's bridge, Captain Arleigh Burke plants his boots and studies a scope that has become his horizon. The SG paints 5 tidy pips sliding south, Tokyo Express boats angling to lift men off Buka, then run the choke point at the Cape. Make turns for 30, Burke says, voice even as a metronome. Torpedo attack first, hold your guns. Below, in the plotting room, grease pencil lines settle into a geometry you can taste. Bearing rates, courses that cross like string on a child's cat's cradle. The torpedo officers cradle stopwatches, the old habit now wedded to a new perfection. Mark 15s brood in their tubes, more reliable this month than the last, their gyros clicking to angles that don't care if the night smiles or frowns. Ahead, the Japanese line breathes in the dark. Anami up front with Captain Kyoto Kagawa's flag. Then Makinami, Yugiri, and the transports turned escorts Uzuki and Amagiri. On their bridges, officers scan a darkness that used to be a friend. They smell rain, cordage, the clean talc of wavetops, nothing more. They see no starshell ladders, no betraying flashes. Only the sea, which lies like a tame animal when it's planning a bite. Range 9,000, bearing steady. Burke's destroyers slide on rails of numbers. He splits the pack, 3 ships, Charles Osborne, Claxton, Dyson, to throw fish. Converse and Spence held to gun the cripples after the strike. Stand-by tubes. The words go out in a calm that makes young men blink. The timing is a kind of devotion. Tubes 1 through 5, fire. White wakes unspool with the grace of handwriting. The American destroyers heel, turn away to unmask guns, their wakes combing clean of their own murder angles. For a heartbeat, nothing happens. Then the night bucks. Onami is lifted at the bow and then crushed in the middle, a blow so pure it feels like a sentence finishing. Flame jets once, then she snaps down, her bridge a struck match gone dark. Makinami takes her lesson a beat later. Hit hard, she lurches, pours steam, goes dead in the water like a runner shot through the lungs mid-stride. Yugiri keels just enough to make her captain's mouth go dry, and then claws on, wounded, throwing smoke and prayer. Open fire. The 5-inch 38s talk at last, fast and savage, radar-driven, the director's little on-lights steady as stars that ignore weather. Dyson throws tracers into Makinami's ribs. Claxton and Charles Osborne rake the silhouette with a kindness reserved for mercy kills. Steel buckles, a glare blows out, then gutters, black returns. Converse and Spence unleash the second half of the theorem, finishing fire that has waited patiently in the dark for the right time to speak. They don't aim at light, they aim at pips. The splashes fall where the scopes say the enemy is, not where eyes guess. You can feel the habit of a year's fighting unspool from wrists and be replaced with something colder. Yugiri tries to run north, a wounded shape throwing a wake like a road. Burke's pack fans to follow. Bearings flow down TBS, precise, spare, beautiful. They drive her by instrument, one ship hosing her bow, another waiting on a lead for the stern, a third walking shells across her midships like a tailor measuring cloth. She fights, God, how she fights, guns thumping back into a night that refuses to give her a target. Then a shell punches low. A new light crawls out of her and climbs her mast in a cruel, deliberate way. Minutes later, she is a smear of smoke with voices in it, and then just the voices. Amagiri and Uzuki, slim, lucky, slip from the trap on the outside track, chalking their escape up to a vacuum in the dark where a torpedo might have been. They will live to tell of a night that felt wrong in their bones. They will talk in messes of shots that came from nowhere, of being held by nothing they could aim at, of an enemy that didn't need the night to be light, only to be true. Check fire, Burke says when the last Japanese returns fade to dotless water. The SG scopes show only ocean's noise again, the quiet hiss of rain. He glances at his watch. 38 minutes since first contact. 3 enemy destroyers sunk. No American hits taken. No star shells burned to burn their own ships into targets. No searchlights. Only the green truth on glass. On the Osborne's bridge, a young ensign lets out a breath that fogs the window and realizes his hands have left sweaty ghosts on the rail. Someone behind him, a chief with a scar like a string pulled across his jaw, mutters, "That's how it's done." Not like a brag, but like a catechism finished. At a 1.0 pace, CIC murmurs, relax into the small sounds of a room that remembers it is just a room. Pencils capped, chinographs wiped to gray clouds. Range clocks re-zeroed. A petty officer touches the scope face once, unconsciously, the way you pat a horse that carried you clean over a bad fence. On the bulkhead, the taped sign might as well be scripture now. Look here first. Far away, in a wardroom lit too bright in Rabaul, a Japanese officer reads the signals that came back and didn't. The report that lists names that will need lines scratched through them. He pours tea with hands that do not shake, and says softly to the air, "They shot us in the night, as if it were day." The sentence lands without drama, a tired truth finding a chair. Back where this began, Ironbottom Sound's black flawed mirror, the water carries its tally without comment. He and Kirishima sleep there under silt, while Washington's wake is a story ending.
Between those minutes of white day in 1942 and this clean geometry off Cape St. George, a Navy learned to let go of its eyes. It learned to trust a humming room and the men inside it, to hold fire until math could bite, to make darkness a map, not a mystery.
You can almost feel the wind on that first bridge again, the rain on Kirishima's glass, the white suns of star shells popping like cruel fruit. And then leap to Burke's quiet order, hold your guns. The distance between those two moments is not measured in miles. It is measured in a new kind of sight. Dawn won't celebrate. It rarely does. It will just pull pale light over destroyers steaming home slow, wet decks shining, faces smudged, eyes rimmed with the fatigue of clean victory. In the log, a yeoman will write numbers. In a diary, a gunner's mate will write a sentence about how the night felt honest for once. And in places that count ships and not feelings, someone will underline a line. We own the dark when we let it be seen by the right eyes. The war will go on. Bigger seas, bigger guns, different nights. But on this one, in this rain, in this tight, clean fight, the proof is finished.